we're ready. Okay, we're going to call the Surrey Police Board regular meeting to order. The Surrey Police Board recognizes that our work takes place on the ancestral, traditional, and unceded territories of the Coast Salish people. If somebody under adoption would adopt the agenda of July 20th, 21, somebody move it. Seconder, all in favor, against, carried. Under delegations, there's no delegations. Under report, Chief Constable's report. Number 1 is the Chief Constable update, standing report. Chief Lubinsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon, everyone. Pleasure to offer the Chief Constable standing report. Start off with our hiring. As you see in your materials, we are progressing in our hiring program. We've got 41 officers that are now in place. 25 offers have been accepted, and those will start anywhere from July to September. And we also have 14 civilian staff in place and 2 offers pending. We are moving ahead, and even as we speak, there's interviews being held this afternoon. I'm very pleased with that. In total, we have 82 full-time equivalents employees hired to date. I'd like to move on to community consultation. As you know, there are 2 streams to this. The first stream is a community survey. I understand that the survey is near completion. We look to providing results in the next board meeting. And the other stream is community consultation. That is face-to-face, albeit virtual, with either focus groups or community leaders. And that is probably about 1/3 of the way through. I, in fact, have done 6 of them, and very good information is coming from the community pertaining to what they see the forward path is for the Surrey Police Service. I look forward to presenting a report. Right now, it's tentative for the September meeting. But we will see how long it takes for the results to be tabulated, summarized, and then provided into a written report. Suffice to say, very pleased on the progress to date of the community consultation. Moving on to budget development, we have just started the 2022 budget development process, working closely with the city. My executive leadership team has been tasked with looking at what will be required for the 2022 year, both in the FTE stream as well as the stream pertaining to training, to facilities, to equipment, etc. It's a long process since we do not have a template per se, but it is moving along very well, and we appreciate the assistance of the City of Surrey finance staff. The last segment I'll cover is policy development. This is a large piece of work. We do have a team that is working on it every week, developing new policies in order to have a fulsome manual. We're looking at possibly upwards to 200 policies. I think that it'll be very positive of some of the changes because we look at what are the best practices across Canada and looking to employ them into our policies, which will be converted into our street practices or boots on the ground practices. And so that is progressing very well. And as with all policies, they go to governance committee or the HR committee before they come before the board as a whole. So pleased with the progress to date on the policy side. That is my report, Mr. Chair. Happy to take any questions.
Any comments, questions of board members? see any put their hand up. So I'll call for a motion to receive the report. Somebody move it. Seconder, all in favor, against, carried. Number 2 is Surrey Police Service sworn officer status. Chief Lubinsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'm pleased to report that last Friday we swore in 46 police officers. We also welcomed to the SPS 11 civilians. The police officers were sworn in by the Honorable Judge Kimberly Arthur Leung, and it was a great event. The precursor to that is, in order for SPS members to be sworn in, needed policies to be filed with the province and certain policies pertaining to use of force, training, etc. Those were done. And now that we have established those policies, the province given the approval for us to move forward with swearing in our members. As we continue to hire, we will swear the members in. They will be active police officers, but I must recognize that we are not the police of jurisdiction. This is really for training purposes to get people ready for that time when we go live with boots on the ground. Nonetheless, it's a big step forward for us, and I thank the organizing committee that put it together.
Okay, any comments, questions of board members? Okay, seeing none, then a motion for receipt. Somebody move receipt.
I believe Elizabeth had a question.
Pardon, who had a question? Sorry.
Elizabeth.
Director Modell. Yeah.
I did, Mr. Chair. Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Chief, I'd like you just to explain in the second to last paragraph on the before the conclusion, the province has requested that direction be provided to SPS officers on these limitations for the period prior to operationalization. This direction will be reviewed and may be amended as the duties and functions of SPS members expand in the future. Could you just further explain that for us, please? Thank you.
Okay, Chief.
Thank you. Absolutely. So as mentioned, we are not the police of jurisdiction, but we are sworn in as police officers. That is to say that a direction went out from my office that we are not involved, that we are not to be involved overtly in any policing matter, that we would be witnesses, or if necessary, we would only act when there would be somebody's life at risk or property damage. So it is the incumbent upon our police officers to essentially be a witness and call the RCMP from Surrey as they are the police of jurisdiction. So again, we are just waiting towards the enactment of when we will go live, boots on the ground. But until that time, the RCMP Surrey detachment will be the police of jurisdiction.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? Okay, I'm going to have somebody move the receipt. Seconder, all in favor, against, carried. Number 3, Chief, you've got number 3 too.
Yes, thank you. This is in relation to a report by the Standing Committee on Public Safety and National Security that recently came out, and the topic is systemic racism in policing in Canada. There are a total of 42 recommendations in your materials. Some of the broad topic areas has to do with civilian oversight, training, human resources, funding, reporting, justice reform, and governance. The report itself is mostly about the RCMP. Nonetheless, the purpose of bringing it forward today is that I have formed a committee that will be looking into each of those recommendations and determining how applicable it would be to the Surrey Police Service, and if there's anything that we could do as we look towards building the SPS, and that has to do with our practices, our policies, our training, our human resource practices, then we would look to bringing that before the board and incorporating that or making any changes to our policy. We anticipate this will probably take at least 6 to 8 weeks because the report is that fulsome, but we will bring it back to this venue. Thank you.
Okay, any comments, questions of board? Director Modell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just, on behalf of the board, Chief, I just want to thank you for creating that committee to do this. It's really important that as we move forward, recognizing the highest ethical caliber that we have all been sworn in to represent. I just want to thank you on behalf of the board for this step forward and thinking in this broader band. So appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay, any further questions? Call the question. Somebody move it, please. Seconder, all in favor, against, carried. Under committee reports now, Finance Committee, Director Modell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this will be an update from the Finance Committee on the expenditures to date on the precinct transition. Next slide, please. This report has been prepared for an update for the board on the precinct transition. It's one-time expenditures, and you'll receive these monthly updates on the expenditures for information purposes. So the expense summary included in the report from the Finance Committee is a brief description of the available budget allocations and corresponding expenditures for the one-time policing transition project. As of May 31st, 2021, SPS has incurred a total expenditure of $4.4 million. Expenditures in all areas are underspent compared to the available budget of $43.7 million, which includes $20.6 million carry forward from 2020. In 2021, areas of significant expected spending are IT, infrastructure, and recruitment. Next slide, please. So the impacts is $40.0 million available as the end of May 2021. Projected spending, as you can see from the slide, will be approximately $29.5 million. By the end of 2021, the carry forward would be $14.2 million to 2022 and future years. And given the requirement to confer broadly with the province and the Government of Canada, the timing of the expenditures is not always precisely as we have planned. Next slide, please. So this slide shows a summary budget balance for the policing transition based on the expenditures up to and including May 31st, 2021. It's pretty small, so I will go through it. The one-time expenditures for the 2020 year were budgeted at $25.2 million, of which $20.6 million was not expended and carried forward to the 2021 fiscal year, which is column A. Expenditures for the 2021 fiscal year budgeted at $23.1 million, column B, are added to the amount carried forward. The total of $43.7 million is the available budget for the current year. $4.4 million was expended by the end of May 2021, which is column D. The total of $29.5 million is expected to be incurred by the end of the fiscal year, which is column E. And by the end of 2021, SPS expects to carry forward $14.2 million to 2022 and future years, which is column F. The next slide, please. Allocation of the available budget. HR recruiting and training is $11.3 million, which is 26%. This includes expenditure associated with surge recruiting, testing, and training the new SPS hires. The infrastructure of $10.2 million, which is 23%. This includes expenditures primarily for armory, fleet, retrofitting of this facility is currently owned by the City of Surrey. The next is, let's see, where am I? Infrastructure is 10.2 million, which is 23%. And this primarily includes expenditures. Oh, I've already said that. My apologies. Legal, finance, and policy advice of 1.4 million, 3%. This is a cost of advisors to build a framework to establish SPS. And communications and marketing is 0.6 million, which is 2%. Included are the expenditure for managing the public relations required to support the establishment of SPS. So this report has been prepared just to provide an update for the board on expenditures, and the board will receive the monthly updates, as we mentioned before, for information. So back to you, Mr. Chair, the recommendation to receive the report for information. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the report. Any comments or questions by board members? Seeing none, a motion for receipt, please. Somebody move it. Seconder. All in favor, against, carried. Under information, the first one, Melissa, do you want to talk about service of policy complaint?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Just quickly for the board's awareness, the complainant, the applicant, has requested the OPCC review the board's findings. The OPCC does have 40 days to respond to the applicant, and they will then advise us if there are any further steps that we must take.
Okay, maybe do the next one. We'll bundle them together on receipt.
So the annual CAPG, Canadian Association of Police Governance Conference, is coming up. So this is the annual general meeting and call for nominations. There is a police board member from Nelson who is looking to fill a vacancy for the province of British Columbia on the CAPG executive board.
Okay, number 3, Surrey Police Board reappointments.
Thank you very much. So this is just for everybody's awareness. The Order in Council went through for Directors Cloak and Gill, with a term ending December 31st, 2022, and reappointments for Directors Chappell and Sunner with terms ending June 30th, 2023.
Okay, thank you. And number 4, OPCC Bolton.
This is, again, for the board's awareness, just with respect to the ministerial order pursuant to the Emergency Measures Act that gave the OPCC the ability to waive, suspend, or extend limitation periods. They will continue to do so until 90 days after the ending of the Emergency Measures Act. So this is for your awareness only. It's an administrative piece.
Okay, thank you. Any comments, questions of the board on any of those 4 items? Motion for receipt, please. Somebody move it. Seconder, all in favor, against, carried. Under correspondence, you have a letter from the Director of Police Services, the approval of sworn officer status. Chief Lubinsky, do you want to make a comment on it?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. This is simply for information. This letter indicates that the Surrey Police Service can now swear in their police officers.
Okay, any comments, questions on it? Okay, call somebody move it, please, for receipt. Seconder, all in favor, against, carried. No new business. The next.
If I may?
Yes.
We need to adopt the minutes of the last board meeting.
Okay, we must have skipped over it.
Thank you.
Okay, adoption. So we need a motion for adoption of the minutes of the June 22nd, 2021 board meeting. Somebody move them. Seconder, all in favor, against, carried. The next meeting will be September 28th, 2021. I now need a motion to hold a meeting in a closed session. Somebody move it. Seconder, all in favor, against, carried. And a motion for adjournment. Somebody move it. Seconder, all in favor, against, carried. Thank you very much, everyone, for the meeting.